Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Ladi Williams. Let's kick off with markets now from the African continent. The Nigeria's All-Share Index may be losing some of its gains of yesterday. A marginal negative sentiment was recorded at intraday, but more losses are recorded at the same time at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Egypt's All-Share was, however, positive at intraday with 11,301.36 points, indicating a 0.16% gain, while Kenya closed negative on Thursday, shedding 0.75%. And investors were swayed one way or the other at the end of trading session on Thursday. Abu Dhabi was up 0.05%, while Dubai lost 0.14% in another region. Saudi Arabia was up 0.08%, while Qatar ended negative, losing 0.22%. And over to Europe now. European markets were mixed on Friday morning as investors monitored key economic indicators out of the Eurozone and the U.S. Eurozone business activity remained robust in August despite the impact of a Delta variant of COVID-19 and broad supply chain problems, according to Friday's PMI readings. Let's bring in Christy now from Frankfurt. Great to have you, Christy. So Germany's prime equity index, the DAX, is getting a shakeup. Tonight, the German Stock Exchange will announce which 10 companies are to join the benchmark this month, bringing the total number of stocks to 40. What does this mean for investors?
The biggest shakeup we've seen for the index you can see behind me in over 30 years. So what's going on here? Basically, along with introducing 10 new players, the German Stock Exchange has also decided to add quality assurance checks and profitability requirements for the companies on the DAX. So shareholders have welcomed this news. I mean, this came out of what happened last year. In the summer, we all recall that the German fintech darling Wirecard collapsed after being on the docks for 2 years, despite many signs of irregularities in their business. Yeah, shareholders are saying that these new rules and these new additions will reflect the diversity of the German economy better than it did before and will really show the strength of Europe's largest economy. So we'll be seeing tonight at 10 p.m. who the 10 new members are, but there are several that everyone's saying are basically shoe-in. We're talking about the aerospace giant Airbus, for example, as well as e-commerce giant Zalando.
All right, I'll be watching out for that. So, but figures on the Eurozone business activity for August are out today. How's the market reacting to this?
Yeah, you gave a great summary of it before. I mean, what we saw ahead of the numbers coming out this morning, interestingly, we saw European stocks falling. What this indicated is that we saw a lot of hesitation and a lot of pessimism around what the figures were going to be. Also, a lot of pessimism around what they're expecting for the U.S. labor numbers, which will still be coming out later today. But as you said, the figures came out and showed a quite robust performance in August, despite the Delta variant. What we saw is that the service industry performed very well, and that this was able to make up to some degree for struggles we're continuing to see in manufacturing. Now that area, they're still struggling with supply chain bottlenecks, and this is driving up prices for manufacturers, which contributed to the rise in Eurozone inflation that we saw reported for August earlier this month. So while these initial indicators are positive and the market is happy to see that, we do still have a lot of uncertainty going into the fall.
All right, let's look at some data issue now. I see Irish regulators have fined Facebook-owned WhatsApp $270 million for violating EU data privacy law. And many U.S. tech companies have a European base in Ireland because of the low corporate tax rate, but the country is also responsible for regulating them. How are they managing this balancing act?
Yeah, it's been a difficult one. I mean, what we're seeing in this fine that came out is that, the largest suit against Facebook since this law came out 3 years ago. When the EU established this new set of data regulation 3 years ago, it was considered the gold standard of data protection law around the globe and considered a model for other countries when it comes to taking on how big tech goes about using user data. Now, since then, critics have said that the regulation has been largely ineffective and that regulators are doing a poor job upholding their own rules. So let's look at Ireland, for example. As you said, they're the headquarters for most of the major big tech companies out of the US. Being so, they're responsible for holding them accountable to data protection law in the EU. And Ireland's come under a lot of heat for not doing a very good job. Now, on the other hand, the agency responsible for doing that is very underfunded, and they argue that they're really being tasked with a very complicated job of interpreting a very large, very complex new set of legislation. So this will be an area that EU regulators are really going to have to watch as they go about making advancements in the data protection area, which has been a priority for them in the last couple of years.
All right, Christy Platten, thank you so much for that update. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks. You too.
All right, over to the UK now. Let's bring in Juliana. Great to have you, Juliana. Yeah, you know, we didn't finish that conversation earlier in Business Morning with UK residents hoarding an estimated £50 million in loose change. That's a big number. Is spending in sight here?
Good afternoon, laddie. Yeah, £50 million in 1 pennies, 2 pennies, 5 pennies and 10 pence pieces is a lot of money. Of course, this has been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic, because I can't tell you the last time I used spare change, because if you go to most shops, they won't accept cash. They want you to tap your card and go away with you. But this is a pretty serious issue that the UK economy is facing, apparently, and this is according to UK Finance, which is a trade body that's put out this number, because this money needs to be moving its way around the economy, and the people who get left behind are homeless individuals and charities. And charities over the past 18 months haven't been getting the amount of money they would typically have gotten, and that's because if you're somebody that buys a cup of coffee for about £1.50, if you can get one that's that cheap, and then usually that 50 pence piece, you may put it in a pot that goes to a charity, or you'd give it to a homeless person. That's not happening anymore, and lots of the spare change people are being able to use is being hoarded in their homes to the tune of £50 million. I think the message that was put out this morning is please, 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 if you've got any spare change at the back of your sofa, do gather it up and give it to somebody who is in desperate need of it. Right,
that actually makes sense. Well, there's also talk about finding a way to adequately fund social care. Can this lead to some kind of tax hike?
Yeah, this is an interesting story. It hasn't had much splash today, but I think once Parliament returns from its summer break next week, this is going to be a big, big story, because as we know, or as our British viewers will definitely know, the Conservative Party are definitely not known for rising tax. In fact, when Prime Minister Boris Johnson was standing on the steps of 10 Downing Street after his monumental victory in 2019, he said that, you know, raising tax was not something he was going to do. You know, fast forward 3 months and we had a pandemic, and they've got to put some money back into the coffers, particularly for social care, which is where this potential hike in national insurance will go to, because it really suffered during the pandemic. Lots of the outbreaks of COVID-19 did happen in these care homes. It opened a huge can of worms about the lack of funding, and now Sajid Javid, the kind of newly appointed Health Secretary, former Chancellor of the Exchequer, is asking apparently for a 2% hike in the national insurance tax contribution, which will go to social care. Now, his successor, Rishi Sunak, the now British Finance Minister, says he wants something to be between 1 and 1.25%. Now, national insurance isn't like income tax, because really, if you have a job or you do anything, you pay that money. So if you're earning over over £180 a week here in the UK, or if you're self-employed and you earn over £6,000 a year, you have to pay it. So a lot of the criticism coming from some backbenchers in the Conservative Party and the opposition Labour Party is that this is unfairly targeting young people who are just starting jobs and people who are less well off. I think a lot of Labour MPs would rather this be a hike in the income tax, because the more you earn, the more tax you pay, and they think that should be more fairly distributed. But nothing has been confirmed. We'll find out next week.
All right, we'll be tracking that. Well, thank God it's Friday. How are the markets looking this intraday?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say that. Yes, thank God it's Friday.
Thank God.
The FTSE is in underwater at intraday. It's been a bit of a slow start to the month of September. Started off on record-breaking highs after the long bank holiday weekend on Tuesday, but it hasn't gained that momentum. So at intraday, the FTSE All-Share is up 0.27%. The FTSE 100 is up 0.13%, and the FTSE 250 is up 0.14%. So I go back on what I said, and the FTSE looks like it's going to go into the weekend on a high, but who knows, there are still a couple of trading hours left. In the currencies market, though, the British pound is down on the US dollar by 0.04%, down on the euro by 0.02%, and down on the Japanese yen and intraday by 0.03%, Laddie.
All right, Juliana, thank you so much for that update. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, you too.
So moving on now, shares in Japan jumped on Friday after Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga said he will not be running in the upcoming leadership election. The Nikkei 225 closed 2.05% higher at 29,128 points, while the Topix index finished the trading day 1.61% higher at 2,015.45 points. Japanese manufacturing stocks saw big gains, with FANUC jumping 3.46%, while JFE Holdings surged 6.49%. Elsewhere, mainland Chinese stocks closed lower, with Shanghai Composite down 0.43% to 3,581.73 points, while the Shenzhen Component slipped 0.68% to 14,179.86 points. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index shed 0.72% to close at 25,901. South Korea's Kospi climbed 0.84%. In Australia, the S&P ASX 200 gained 0.5% to close at 7,522.90 points, while Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.34%. U.S. stocks futures were mildly higher in early morning trading on Friday as investors geared up for August jobs report. Dow futures rose 47 points. S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ 100 futures both traded marginally higher. We have Maria Bird now, correspondent in the United States, with details from the market for yesterday. Take a listen.
U.S. stocks gained Thursday as investors awaited more labor market data, which will serve as crucial information in determining the path forward for the monetary policies underpinning risk assets over the past year. Ahead of a key monthly report on job gains, a new print on weekly unemployment claims came in lower than expected, underscoring further improvements in the economic recovery. The S&P 500 advanced to an all-time high. The NASDAQ also rose to set a fresh intraday record before pairing some gains during the afternoon session. The index's record high has been powered by technology stocks, with the NASDAQ extending a run of outperformance from August. This has in turn signaled investors' concerns over the status of the economic recovery, given the Delta variant spread, with growth in technology stocks seen as a more of a defensive trade amid a coronavirus resurgence.
Egypt's gross domestic product grew 7.7% in the March to June quarter compared to a 1.7% contraction in the same quarter last year. Initial reading of Egypt's GDP growth in the fiscal year of 2020-2021 that ended in June was nearly 3.3%. The country expects a growth of 5.4% in the current financial year that started in July. Well, let's talk to Edward Irani now, Voice of America correspondent in Egypt. Great to have you on the program.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so quite a positive growth there. What do you think drove this?
Well, I think after the country was closed for much of the year, the previous year, or not all of it, but large sectors of the economy were closed, things were sort of coming back to normal. I mean, they never really quite came back to normal. The tourism sector didn't come back to normal. Trade in the canal, the Suez Canal, I think that accounts for about $5.6 billion worth of Egypt's trade. Slightly increased, I believe, although, trade is kind of soft due to the corona epidemic worldwide. And tourism, which historically was a very important part of the Egyptian economy, I think they're calling it 5% of the economy now, or the GDP. Was very weak, and it's been very episodic. It sort of goes up periodically, then down, and then up. So it's not something you can predict, meaning that next year's figures that they're predicting, the economy or planning minister is predicting, probably you really can't rely on them. I mean, it's, a bit of a guess.
Right, projections there. All right, Edward Yeranian, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and oil prices dipped on Friday after posting strong overnight gains on a weaker dollar and a bigger than expected fall in the U.S. crude stocks, and we're headed for small gains on the week ahead of the highly anticipated U.S. monthly jobs report. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 24 cents to $69.75 a barrel, while Brent crude futures fell 13 cents to $72.90 a barrel. And Tanzania's government has reduced by 30% the mobile money levy it approved amid complaints from residents that the levy was a financial burden. June, the government amended the Electronic and Postal Communication Act by imposing a levy of between 10 shillings and 10,000 shillings on mobile money transactions, depending on the amount sent and withdrawn. The government had endorsed the levy in an effort to raise revenue by 1.254 trillion shillings to partly finance the 36.68 trillion shillings budget of 2021 and 2022. And the Single Africa Air Transport Market is an initiative of the African Union to create a single unified air transport market in Africa to advance the liberalization of civil aviation in Africa and act as a catalyst to the continent's economic integration agenda. Well, how can Nigeria benefit from this? We have with us Chris Aligwe, aviation expert, joining us right now on Business Incorporated. Great to have you on the program. Hello, Mr. Aligwe.
Yeah, thank you, Ladi. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, I can hear you now. Great to have you. Well, 23 African countries, including Nigeria, adopted the SATM in 2015, which was created to lift restrictions in open skies among African countries. How would you say it's performed since then?
Well, I would say we have moved very much in that area because the industry appeared not have been ready for it. For the simple fact that the airlines that came up new, that are now operating, did not know much about the open skies issues when it started. It started as far back as even before 2000 with Banjul Accord and Yamoussoukro Declaration, which was adopted in Lomé in the year 2000. And so these airlines were there then. So it came to them as a surprise, and they woke up to start complaining and say, look, why should this be? Nigeria should not sign. But if the train has started moving, and Nigeria has signed, and it is good that Nigeria has signed. So what we should consider is it should be a pull factor. But what has happened is our airlines are trying to pick up and to at least come to the point where they can contribute immensely to the economic development of both Nigeria and Africa. But the fact of the matter, that's why some of us, when you hear some of us saying we need a major flag carrier, that we pull up existing airlines so that at least everybody can get up and then key into this flagship project, because the single African air transport market is the flagship project, is the logistic infrastructure that the AU heads of state developed to make sure that the African continental free trade area will be properly driven. So without this logistic infrastructure, which is almost scarce for Africa, Africa cannot get anywhere. And Nigeria is so properly located with its population, with its potential location, almost equidistant to most parts of Africa, our airlines able to key into it. We are looking forward to the fact that the airlines that are picking up, but that's something that IBOM Air and Dana have done now by having a co-share arrangement. Some alliance at least improve the quality of their service and the schedule integrity. What the airlines join, but more importantly, some of us are looking forward to the flotation of the new flag carrier, national flag carrier, which the Minister of Aviation is driving. We need that, because with that, we'll be able to at least key into the system immediately and begin to drive airline operation in Africa. We have so much to contribute to Africa. We have so much to drive. We hear that air transport, trade between African countries, within African, not outside Africa, is about $9.5 billion annually. And Nigeria is not deriving much from this. The number of aircraft we have in Nigeria is not even put them together, they're not even properly enough for what Ethiopia has. Yet the traffic is in Nigeria, the trade is in Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest single African market. And once we can key into this with proper airline operations and an airline industry that is very vibrant, not just at domestic level. The airlines are trying at domestic level, but we need to go beyond that domestic level to cover the entire African region, not just the sub-region of West Africa, but the entire African region, which we are not doing now. And we need to do that. There is so much to be derived when we go beyond, when we go outside Nigeria. That's what we are trying to, that's what we're advising our airline. Everybody should buck up. And we look forward to maybe next year so that we can key into the Saturn.
Okay. All right. All right, Mr. Aligwe, thank you so much. We will be looking forward to that national air carrier for Nigeria. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Ladi. Thank you, Ini. Thank you.
All right, moving on now. Agricultural exports and re-exports from Rwanda generated over $444.8 million in 2020-2021, representing a revenue increase of 6.17% compared to $419 million and during the previous fiscal year. This growth, which was registered despite the outbreak of COVID-19, comes after 2 consecutive years of agricultural exports decline. The report shows the revenues from traditional export commodities such as tea, coffee, decreased by 1.19% due to an 8.7% drop in tea average price, while non-traditional export commodities increased by 10.67%. Grains and cereals, fish, essential oils, sugar, vegetable oil contributed to this good performance of non-traditional exports in Rwanda. And Impala Platinum's gross profit soared 130% to 53.5 billion rand in the 2021 financial year due to rallying metal prices and higher sales. Implats say though the company's balance sheet was strong, they are still cautious in its price outlook for platinum group minerals, which could be affected by South African supplies coming onto the market and more subdued demand from car producers and as they struggle with a semiconductor chip shortage. And Air Zimbabwe has resumed Harare-Johannesburg flights in a move expected to boost economic activity in the country. The development comes after Air Zimbabwe resumed a triangular four times a week Harare-Bulawayo Victoria Falls routes in June. For the first time since January last year, after stopping commercial flights apart from the charter operations due to COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. The resumption of the Harare-Johannesburg route, which is also expected to pave the way for the resumption of intercontinental flights, starting with Beijing and followed by London, feeds into the government's agenda of attaining an upper-middle income economy by 2030. Prior to this resumption, Air Zimbabwe had been plying the Harare-Dar es Salaam route. And that's it on Business Incorporated for the week. Thank you for watching. I'm Blady Williams. Bye-bye.